And the demon looks at me and says, "You can't get rid of us. We've been here for too long and you're just not strong enough." The demon manifested. Her eyes rolled in the back of her head. She began foaming at the mouth, growling and snarling, and throwing out all kinds of blasphemies.
Is the Book of Enoch not the book theology experts have always expected? Deep in its pages could be codes and mysteries that uphold and support the Devil's Bible, one of the most unspeakable literature. Brace yourself as we unfold the forbidden ties that could bind these two legendary books and the unimaginable forces humanity are not supposed to know. Enoch's book relation with the Devil's Bible. When it comes to mysterious and often controversial ancient texts, the Book of Enoch and the Devil's Bible.
Also, were there actual giants in the Bible? What's up with the Book of Enoch? Are Christmas and Easter,
also known as the Codex Gigas, stand out? While these two texts come from different historical and cultural contexts, there are some intriguing parallels in the themes they explore. Both works deal with dark and supernatural forces, weaving narratives of fallen angels, forbidden knowledge, and the eternal battle between good and evil. But what exactly connects these two texts? And why are they so often linked in popular discussions of the occult? First, let's break down what the Book of Enoch is all about. This ancient Jewish text, attributed to the great-grandfather of Noah, Enoch, is part of a group of writings known as the Apocrypha. Though it's not included in the official canon of most Christian or Jewish traditions, it offers a fascinating glimpse into early Jewish mysticism and apocalyptic thought. The book tells the story of the Watchers, angels who descend to Earth and, instead of staying true to their heavenly mission, fall in love with human women. These angels teach humanity forbidden knowledge, including secrets of heaven and earth, which ultimately leads to chaos. The offspring of these angels and humans, called the Nephilim, become giants who wreak havoc on the world. As punishment, the fallen angels are bound and cast into the abyss, and the Nephilim are wiped out by the Great Flood. In a nutshell, the Book of Enoch is full of forbidden knowledge, divine retribution, and apocalyptic visions, setting the stage for themes that would resonate in later mystical and occult traditions. The known Devil's Bible. Fast forward to the 13th century, and we encounter the Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, an enormous manuscript that has long been associated with dark forces. The book is famous not just for its size. It's about 3 feet long and weighs 75 pounds, but also because of its disturbing artwork, including a full-page illustration of the devil himself. The Codex Gigas is a medieval compilation of various texts, including a Latin version of the Bible, historical writings, medical texts, and other religious works. But its most famous feature is the image of the devil. According to legend, the book was created by a monk who, after being condemned to a death sentence, promised to write a book that would contain all human knowledge in exchange for his life. The story goes that, unable to finish it alone, he made a pact with the devil, who helped him complete the book. This connection with the devil has led to the name the Devil's Bible. Though the Codex Gigas doesn't specifically deal with fallen angels or forbidden knowledge in the way the Book of Enoch does, its dark imagery and association with the devil place it in the realm of texts that explore themes of rebellion against divine authority and the embrace of forbidden forces. It's no wonder that people have linked the two works in popular culture. So, what's the connection between the Book of Enoch and the Devil's Bible? These two mystical manuscripts, steeped in dark secrets and apocalyptic visions, have captivated scholars and conspiracy theorists alike for centuries. But what if the truth is far more unsettling than anyone could have imagined? Both books deal with the idea of forbidden knowledge and the consequences of defying divine will. In the Book of Enoch, the Watchers bring forbidden knowledge to humanity, and it's this knowledge that leads to their downfall. They're cast out of heaven, punished for teaching mankind things they weren't meant to know. In the Codex Gigas, the monk's supposed pact with the devil to complete the book mirrors this idea of trading one's soul for knowledge, or at least for the power to accomplish something that seems impossible. Both texts also involve an element of rebellion, whether it's the Watchers defying God's will by interacting with humans, or the monk in the Codex Gigas supposedly making a pact with the devil. The theme of spiritual corruption, of falling from grace, and of engaging with forces that go beyond human understanding is central to both books. Despite their differences in context and content, the Book of Enoch and the Devil's Bible have both left a lasting imprint on popular culture, particularly in how we think about forbidden knowledge and the supernatural. The Book of Enoch had a profound influence on early Christian and Jewish mysticism, with themes that would later pop up in other apocalyptic texts. The Codex Gigas, on the other hand, with its dramatic visuals and the legends surrounding its creation, has become a symbol of the dark side of human knowledge. In many ways, both books continue to captivate the imagination of those who are drawn to the mysterious and the occult. They represent the idea that knowledge, when taken too far, or when accessed in the wrong ways, can have dangerous and even damning consequences. Whether you believe in their historical accuracy or see them purely as myth and legend, these texts remind us of the thin line between wisdom and corruption. Enoch and his book. The Book of Enoch is a fascinating and complex text, and whether it's seen as good or evil depends largely on one's perspective, religious background, and what they expect from the book. It's important to understand that the Book of Enoch is not part of the canonical Bible for most Christian and Jewish traditions, yet it has had a significant influence on early Christianity, especially in certain mystical and apocalyptic traditions. The book is sometimes described as evil due to its themes of angels, fallen beings, and divine wrath. But a closer examination paints a more nuanced picture. The Book of Enoch, or 1 Enoch, is an ancient Jewish religious text that is traditionally attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. It's generally thought to have been written between the 3rd century BCE and the 1st century CE, though its origins are shrouded in mystery. The text itself is divided into several sections, and its central themes revolve around divine judgment, the fate of the fallen angels, and apocalyptic visions of the future. It's important to note that the book contains no direct teachings of Jesus Christ or any canonical teachings that are found in the New Testament, which is why it didn't make it into the Bible for most Christian denominations. The story of the fallen angels, called the Watchers, who descend to earth and corrupt humanity, is one of the most prominent parts of the book. These angels take human wives, which leads to the birth of giants, Nephilim, creating chaos on earth. This storyline has long fascinated people, especially because it touches on the mysterious and often debated sons of God from the Genesis 6 passage, which many interpret as a reference to fallen angels or divine beings interbreeding with humans. When it comes to labeling the Book of Enoch as either good or evil, we need to look deeper at its content. The central themes are not about moral goodness or evil in the sense we might expect from traditional religious teachings. Instead, the text delves into cosmic morality, divine justice, and the fate of those who defy divine order. On the one hand, the story of the Watchers and their eventual punishment by God seems to portray a cosmic battle between good and evil. The Watchers are punished for their rebellion, and the text suggests that these angels' actions led to the corruption of humanity. This is portrayed as a major act of wrongdoing. From this perspective, the book could be seen as reinforcing the idea of divine justice, where transgression against divine order leads to catastrophic consequences. Influence on Christianity. Despite being excluded from the canonical Bible for most Christian denominations, the Book of Enoch has had an undeniable impact on early Christian thought.
The Book of Enoch, we know, it doesn't come from that time frame. In and around the 300 years.
In fact, the book is quoted in the New Testament, particularly in the Epistle of Jude, which references a prophecy attributed to Enoch. This has led some to argue that the book holds a certain degree of spiritual authority and significance, even if it's not considered fully inspired or sacred in a traditional Christian sense. The influence of the Book of Enoch can also be seen in the apocalyptic literature that emerged in the first few centuries CE. Concepts like the coming of the Son of Man, a figure who represents the Messiah, and the final judgment of the wicked can be found in both the Book of Enoch and the later writings of the New Testament. including the Book of Revelation. The concept of a divine judgment that separates the righteous from the unrighteous, as portrayed in the Book of Enoch, echoes throughout Christian eschatology. At the same time, the idea of fallen angels and cosmic rebellion in the Book of Enoch has also led to its occasional portrayal as a book of dark knowledge. Some have viewed the text as potentially dangerous, especially because of its connections to occult practices, angelology, and apocalyptic prophecies. This is partly because the Book of Enoch is rich in symbolic and often mysterious imagery, which can be interpreted in multiple ways. For example, the references to the Watcher's teachings of forbidden knowledge have been seen by some as suggesting a kind of proto-Gnosticism, or a rejection of the standard orthodox teachings of the time. Does the Book of Enoch remain a book of mystery and intrigue until today? To the majority not aware of it, it could be. It has been embraced by some as an important spiritual or mystical text, especially within the context of New Age or esoteric movements, while others still consider it a dangerous or unholy book due to its apocalyptic and complex themes. It has often been associated with conspiracy theories, secret knowledge, and even evil, because of its mysterious aura and themes of rebellion against divine order. However, the Book of Enoch is far more than just a tale of angels and demons. It's a text that raises profound questions about morality, free will, divine justice, and the limits of human knowledge. It challenges the simple dichotomy of good versus evil, and invites readers to contemplate the consequences of disobedience to divine law, not just in a religious context, but also in a philosophical and metaphysical sense. Is the Book of Enoch a good or evil book? In many ways, it's neither. It's a book that challenges readers to think deeply about the nature of humanity, divine justice, and the consequences of both obedience and rebellion. The story of the Watchers and their punishment is certainly a warning about the dangers of moral corruption and disobedience, yet the book's complex portrayal of knowledge, rebellion, and divine wrath also opens the door to a more nuanced understanding of good and evil. Rather than being classified strictly as good or evil, the Book of Enoch is more accurately seen as a work that explores the tension between these concepts, inviting readers to engage with difficult questions about the divine, the human condition, and the nature of knowledge itself. It's a book that doesn't offer easy answers, but that's part of what makes it so compelling. Whether it's good or evil ultimately depends on the lens through which you view it, and in that sense, it's a book that continues to provoke thought and discussion to this day. The book in other sects. Enoch stands out as a notable historical figure, highlighted by his references in the Bible. Even though he does not have a dedicated book in the canonical scriptures, his impact resonates through multiple religious traditions, including Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, where he is revered for his significant contributions. Nevertheless, the acceptance of his writings is somewhat restricted, likely due to uncertainties surrounding their authorship and authenticity. In Judaism, Enoch is celebrated as a righteous man and a prophet who enjoyed a profound connection with God. The sparse mentions of him in the Hebrew Bible have contributed to his portrayal as a unique figure blessed with divine favor. While the Book of Enoch is absent from the Jewish canon, it has notably influenced Jewish mystical thought, especially within Kabbalistic texts that delve into themes of heavenly journeys and encounters with angels. Additionally, the Book of Enoch has been instrumental in shaping Jewish apocalyptic literature, inspiring various non-canonical works that investigate cosmic battles, divine realms, and eschatological concepts. The connection between Christianity and the Book of Enoch is quite complex. In the early centuries of the Common Era, many Christian communities valued the Book of Enoch highly. Notably, the Epistle of Jude in the New Testament references Enoch directly, showcasing the text's significance to early Christians. The themes of divine judgment, rebellion among angels, and the hope of salvation present in the Book of Enoch had a considerable impact on early Christian apocalyptic beliefs. However, the book was eventually left out of the Christian biblical canon, except for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, where it remains an accepted scripture. For most other Christian groups, Enoch is recognized as a prophet, but his writings are deemed pseudepigrapha, meaning they are not officially sanctioned, though they still hold historical and spiritual importance. In Islam, the distinction between the acceptance of the Book of Enoch and the figure of Enoch is clearer. In Islamic tradition, Enoch is known as Idris, a prophet and righteous individual believed to have been blessed with wisdom from God. He is said to have acquired knowledge in various fields, including astronomy and writing. The Quran mentions Idris in chapters 19, verse 56 and 57, portraying him as a truthful prophet who was elevated to a high rank. This idea resonates with the concept of Enoch's ascension to heaven, although it may not be as emphasized as the ascension of Jesus. Enoch serves as a pivotal figure who connects diverse religious traditions, underscoring his significance in the annals of human history. His influence extends even into non-Abrahamic faiths, where references to Enoch can be found, illustrating how his existence has contributed to the understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. The Book of Enoch presents a rich and intricate narrative that engages with profound themes through its examination of celestial entities, prophetic visions, and esoteric knowledge. This text is organized into 5 distinct sections, each illuminating various facets of Enoch's experiences, his divine interactions, and the greater mysteries that govern the universe. The Devil's Bible. The Devil's Bible, also known as the Codex Gigas, is one of the most fascinating and mysterious manuscripts in the world. It's a medieval Latin text that has been shrouded in legend, mystery, and more than a bit of fear. The name itself, Codex Gigas, translates to giant book, and that's pretty fitting, considering it is over 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and weighs about 75 pounds. So it's massive, both in terms of size and the intrigue it sparks, but it's the combination of its eerie contents, its history, and the folklore around its creation that gives it the chilling title of the Devil's Bible. The book was created in the early 13th century, and it's believed to have been written by a single monk, though the story behind this is where things get truly eerie. According to one popular legend, the monk who supposedly wrote the Codex Gigas was condemned to a monastic life of isolation for some kind of serious crime. Faced with the harsh reality of his fate, the monk allegedly struck a deal with the devil himself to help him finish this monumental manuscript in one night. In exchange, the devil would help him complete the book, an arrangement that was, of course, not without consequences. It's said that after finishing the manuscript, the monk's soul was claimed by the devil, which is why the manuscript is thought to contain an image of the devil himself. Now, the Codex Gigas isn't just a book about Satan or anything sinister, it's an enormous compilation of various texts. The manuscript contains the complete Latin Bible, the Vulgate, along with various other works, including historical texts, medical references, and even a calendar. But what truly captures attention is the full-page illustration of the devil, drawn in striking black and red ink. This image of a terrifying horned figure sitting on a throne with a tongue sticking out seems to be the reason the book got its ominous name. The devil is depicted in a way that is different from most medieval representations. He's enormous and grotesque, surrounded by fire and an aura of evil, making it easy to see how the image could feed into the darker legends surrounding the book's origins. In terms of physicality, the Codex Gigas is an absolute marvel. It's made up of 310 parchment leaves, each one made from animal skin. The size of the book itself is a testament to the effort that went into its creation. It would have required a huge amount of time, skill, and resources to complete, especially if a single monk was indeed responsible for the whole thing, as the legend suggests. Scholars believe that it would have taken the monk at least several years to complete the manuscript, but given the complexity and size of the task, it's hard to believe it could have been completed in just one night, no matter the help of the devil. Interestingly, despite its associations with evil and dark forces, the Codex Gigas was actually created in a monastery in Bohemia, now part of the Czech Republic, and was likely intended as a religious artifact. It's believed that the book was originally created for the Benedictine monastery of Podlajici, and it would have served as a liturgical and educational tool. While it includes a great deal of religious content, the inclusion of secular texts, medical information, and a calendar suggests that it was also meant to be a sort of all-encompassing reference book. Over the centuries, the Codex Gigas has passed through various hands and locations, becoming more entwined with history and myth. It was eventually moved to the Royal Library in Prague, where it remained for many years before being stolen by the Swedish during the 30 Years' War in the 17th century. The book was taken to Sweden, where it stayed for hundreds of years before being returned to the Czech Republic in the 20th century. It currently resides in the National Library of the Czech Republic in Prague, where it continues to be a source of fascination for scholars, historians, and those intrigued by the supernatural. In recent years, the Codex Gigas has remained an object of great fascination, not only because of its immense physical presence, but also because of its aura of mystery. It's not just the strange legends or the image of the devil that capture people's imaginations, it's the sheer complexity of the manuscript itself. How could one person have created such an extraordinary work? Could it really have been completed in one night? And more importantly, what does it all mean? The Codex Gigas represents a world of knowledge and superstition intertwined. It's a link to a time when books were sacred, and the boundaries between religion, knowledge, and the unknown were much more fluid. With all the books considered to be religious and spiritual, a lot of minorities wonder whether the Bible is enough to know the truth, or isn't it enough to know God? The book and nothing else. The question of why the Bible is considered enough, and why other texts like the Book of Enoch aren't included in the canonical scriptures, is one that has fascinated theologians, scholars, and believers for centuries. To address this question, we need to understand both the historical context in which the Bible was assembled and the theological reasons that underpin the idea that the Bible alone is sufficient for faith and practice. The core belief in many branches of Christianity is that the Bible, as it stands today, contains all the divinely inspired revelations that are necessary for salvation, moral guidance, and a relationship with God. This belief, known as sola scriptura, Latin for scripture alone, asserts that the Bible is the final authority in matters of faith and practice, and that no other book, no matter how ancient or revered, is required for understanding God's will. The development of the Christian Bible was a long and complex process. The texts that we now recognize as the Old and New Testaments were written over thousands of years by various authors, spanning different cultures, languages, and historical contexts. However, not all texts written during this period were considered to be divinely inspired or authoritative. From the very beginning of Christianity, there was a wide array of religious writings, including Gospels, letters, apocalypses, and other theological works, some of which were eventually deemed unfit for inclusion in the canonical Bible. Early Christians, particularly church leaders, carefully discerned which books best reflected the core teachings of Christ and the apostles, and which were more speculative or deviated from orthodoxy. The decision to limit the canon was not arbitrary. The Church sought to preserve a consistent and coherent message about God, salvation, and moral life. As the canon of Scripture began to take shape, early Christian communities were careful about distinguishing between sacred texts, those that were divinely inspired and aligned with the teachings of Jesus, and other texts that, while perhaps interesting or thought-provoking, were seen as lacking divine authority. For instance, the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text that describes the story of the fallen angels and their interactions with humanity, was widely circulated in some circles in the early centuries of Christianity. However, it was ultimately excluded from the Bible for several reasons, including its controversial theological ideas and its lack of widespread acceptance among early Christian communities. The formal process of canonization was not concluded until the 4th century, with various church councils, such as the Councils of Hippo, 393 CE, and Carthage, 397 CE, affirming the canonical lists that are recognized today. These decisions were not made lightly and were deeply rooted in theological considerations, mainly the belief that the Bible needed to preserve the central message of salvation through Jesus Christ while avoiding confusion or heresy. The sufficiency of the Bible. The idea that the Bible is enough is tightly connected to the doctrine of divine sufficiency. In Christian theology, God is believed to have revealed everything necessary for salvation through the Scriptures. This belief is grounded in verses like 2 Timothy 3, which asserts that all Scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, equipped for every good work. This passage encapsulates the idea that the Bible provides everything believers need to live a righteous life, understand the nature of God, and fulfill their spiritual duties. For many Christians, including those in Protestant traditions, the idea of sola scriptura means that the Bible is the primary and only necessary source of God's revelation. Other books, like the Book of Enoch, which might provide additional insights or perspectives, are seen as unnecessary for understanding the core truths of the faith. The Bible contains, according to this view, all that is required for salvation: the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, the teachings of the apostles, and the moral and ethical guidelines for how to live as a follower of Christ. Any additional writings, no matter how interesting, would not add anything essential to this foundation. The exclusion of other writings, such as the Book of Enoch or the Gospel of Thomas, is seen as a safeguard against confusion or distortion of the core Christian message. In this sense, the Bible is considered to be complete. There is no need for further revelation, as everything that needs to be known has already been revealed within its pages. The Apostle John's words in Revelation 22 also caution against adding to or subtracting from the sacred text, reinforcing the idea that God's revelation is final and complete. While the Bible itself may be considered sufficient in its contents, it's important to recognize that for many Christians, especially those within the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, the interpretation of the Bible does not occur in isolation. Sacred tradition, the ongoing transmission of the faith through the Church, and the authority of the Church's leadership are also seen as essential for understanding Scripture. The Catholic Church, for example, holds that the Bible cannot be fully understood without the interpretive lens provided by tradition and the magisterium, the Church's teaching authority. This means that while the Bible itself is seen as sufficient in terms of containing the necessary teachings for salvation, the understanding of those teachings requires the guidance of the Church's authoritative tradition. This view is in contrast to the Protestant sola scriptura principle, which maintains that the Bible alone is the ultimate authority. For Protestants, however, the focus remains squarely on the Bible as the sole and sufficient source of divine truth. While the Book of Enoch and other apocryphal writings may have historical value or offer intriguing insights into ancient Jewish thought, they are not considered necessary for understanding Christian doctrine. The exclusion of these books from the canon is, in this view, a protection against theological error and an affirmation of the Bible's sufficiency. The Book of Enoch, specifically the first Book of Enoch, which is the most famous, is an ancient Jewish text attributed to the great-grandfather of Noah. It contains elaborate descriptions of angels, demons, and the coming judgment, and it was influential in some early Christian circles, with references to it appearing in the New Testament. However, the Book of Enoch was never widely accepted by the early church as part of the canon, primarily because it contained teachings that seemed to diverge from what was understood as Orthodox Christian belief. For example, the Book of Enoch presents a detailed account of the Watchers, angels who descend to earth and corrupt humanity, a concept that, while compelling, was not fully embraced by the early church. The book also contains elements of apocalypticism and a cosmic battle between good and evil that was seen as peripheral to the central message of the gospel. Furthermore, the Book of Enoch was not universally known in the early Christian world. While it was influential in some Jewish and early Christian circles, it was not widely circulated or recognized as authoritative by the majority of Christian communities, which ultimately contributed to its exclusion from the Bible. Theological consistency and the avoidance of doctrinal confusion played key roles in the decision to limit the canon to the books that were ultimately included. Have you come across the Book of Enoch yet? Tell us what you think in the section below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.